For a time, it was really easy for intuitives to kind of get a bit of an attitude. If you're made to feel inadequate about something most of your life, and then you discover this thing that made you feel inadequate is actually a feature, not a bug. I've been called an ugly duckling my entire life, and now I discover I'm a swan. How would I not feel like I'm the better than everybody else? A person can say, you might be good at it, but it's valueless, or we don't like that here. That cuts to the bone. It makes sense that a lot of intuitives then discover they're intuitive and then have this like inferiority complex get reversed, and now they're in a superiority complex. You mean I was better the whole time? And it's like, no, you weren't better. You were just tuned into something that also has value.
Hey, welcome back to the Personality Hacker Podcast. My name is Joe Markowitz.
And I am Antonia Dodge. I ran into a comment recently. I know, I read comments.
Beg for? You ask for comments and feedback all the time?
Yeah.
And you found one.
Well, there's more than one. There's actually quite a few. But this particular comment was a little bit of a blast from the past, it felt like, because it was somebody with INTJ preferences saying, can you please record a podcast about how an intuitive can survive a sensor world?
It can't be done.
Can't be done.
Can't be done. Sorry, that's our answer. It's impossible. We tried.
Well, the reason why I felt like a blast from the past is like that's how we built Personality Hacker to begin with.
Yeah.
Like 10, 11, 12, 15 years ago, our primary focus was helping people helping intuitives, people who have a preference for intuition, basically learn everything they need to know in order to navigate their lives and their world. And I was going to say, like, listen, just go back 10 years and you're going to find a whole bunch of them. And then I realized that I don't know if there's any from the past that I would recommend.
I would recommend all of them. I just think we have more learning now. We have more things to say about it.
Okay,
it's a good place to get started, honestly.
Yeah, that's the more accurate thing to say.
Yeah.
It's not like I wouldn't recommend them. It's just that I'm like, oh no, that one would be incomplete. Oh no, I have a lot more updated thinking about that. Yeah. And so that got me thinking about this project we sort of shelved, which is a reboot of our Intuitive Awakening course. Yep. So Intuitive Awakening was one of the first programs we put together.
I think it still stands. I think it's a fantastic, I think it still stands on its own. I think it's a good program, but I have a lot of things I want to add to it or change about it.
100%. I don't think anything in there is something I wouldn't stand behind, but I think it feels incomplete now.
Yes.
I feel like I've learned so much since we put that program together that I probably would go about it in a little different way.
Okay, so just to frame, just in case you're brand new to this or something, our intuitive learning style, like we all have a part of us that's intuitive, that basically sees pattern recognition or what's behind the scenes. I'm overgeneralizing just to get us orientated. The other opportunity for us to learn or take in information would be through our senses, through our five senses and other ways to perceive our world. And so we're talking about the way we perceive our world, and we're talking about the intuitive side of that, which only about 25% of the population has this perceptive preference.
As a preference.
But everybody has both an intuitive side of them that tunes into things that maybe aren't seen, using their imagination to speculate or pattern recognize in two different ways, by the way. Mm-hmm. But we all have a part of ourselves that do that, whether it's our preferred way or not. And we all have a more sensory, more physical based, what we can see and know and rely upon in the physical world.
Right.
And we're saying that, or you're basically remembering that a lot of our work in the early days was helping people that were more intuitively wired with a preference for intuition, moving through their world through intuition. How do you navigate a world that's sort of set up for 75% of people that have sensory preferences? Mm-hmm. And so a lot of intuitives feel like misfits. They feel confused. They feel like they don't have people they can have these intuitive conversations with. And so we're helping a lot of people understand that about themselves.
Yeah, it was a big push in the early days. And I think the reason why we went away from it was a couple different things. First, it doesn't take long to discover, if you're doing research around type, like how much of an intuitive bias there is in a lot of Myers-Briggs or like type-based content. Yes. Now, less so now. It's less so now. There was a time when it was really bad. And I think at this point, people, because people of all types are a lot more attuned.
Yeah.
making content for people who have both intuitive and sensory preferences is, I mean, it's just there's a much broader range of audience. So that makes sense. And so one of the reasons why we went away from it is, first, we didn't want to be part of like almost like an intuitive superiority complex.
Yeah.
We saw a need that intuitives had, but it was also, you know, like if you're made to feel inadequate about something most of your life, and then you discover this thing that made you feel inadequate is actually a feature, not a bug.
It's your superpower.
It's your superpower. It's really hard to not almost get a vengeful sense.
An attitude.
Yeah, you get an attitude, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's like
I did.
I've been called an ugly duckling my entire life, and now I discover I'm a swan. How would I not feel like I'm the better than everybody else? And so
Yeah.
it's really easy, or at least there for a time, it was really easy for intuitives to kind of get a bit of an attitude. We didn't want to play into that. So that's the first one. And the second one is, as mentioned, there was a lot broader of an audience that came in. And at this point, I feel like we should reattend to intuitive awakening, but not just for intuitives.
Yeah.
Because I think, what does it mean to have a preference? What it means to have a preference, or at least this is how we define it at this point, and I can't unsee it and go back into any other way of looking at it. We have a preference for certain cognition because they make us feel certain. And we don't have a preference for other kinds of cognition because they make us feel deeply uncertain.
Yeah.
So anything that makes us feel certain and confident, we're going to run toward. And anything that makes us feel uncertain, we're going to run away from, or have a tendency to do so. And so a preference for intuition means intuition and the things related to it put us in a state of certainty.
Yep.
They put us in a state of confidence. And if a person has sensing preferences, it means that when they bring their intuition out, it puts them in a place of uncertainty. Now, that doesn't necessarily inform interest, although it often does, but it's a not correlation causation type of situation.
Yeah.
It's like some people who have sensory preferences really like intuitive things, even if it doesn't make them feel confident or highly certain, they just make peace with the uncertainty and they're still really fascinated by it. So even somebody who has sensing preferences might need to attune to their intuition.
Oh, absolutely.
And have an intuitive awakening.
Yes. By the way, I would love to hear, if you're listening or watching right now, are you a sensor? Like, to the 4-letter code, it will be, the second letter will either be S or N. S stands for sensor. If you're looking at your 4-letter personality code or label, S would stand for sensor. N would stand for intuitive. Why N? Why not I for intuitive? Well, because the I is already taken up for introvert for the first letter, E or I on the first letter. So the Myers-Briggs system decided to use N to represent intuitive. So we'll have an S or an N designation. And again, that's just the label. If you're new to type and you're like, okay, that's all I know about personality type, there's an entire cognitive map that points to. Of your personality, which shows that you actually have both of these things inside of you. You both have an introverted part and an extroverted part. You both have a intuitive and a sensory part. You have a thinking part and a feeling part, right? You have all of these back and forth. You have both of these things. It's what order and what preference are they for you?
Yeah.
That's the map of your personality. And that's so much more nuanced and so much more useful than just a label of 4 letters, right? And so in our work, Antonia, to kind of piggyback off what you said, not only, so you might have more reasons why we didn't talk more about it, make this distinction more broad, because you were kind of talking about all the reasons why. But I just want to say that in our PLP program, for example, working with so many intuitives and sensors, but I would say it probably skews intuitive 7 to 3. 70% are intuitive in those programs often.
Yeah, 70-30.
Because I think a lot of intuitives are struggling with certain very existential questions. And the PLP, personal life path, isn't designed to like make your goals and just accomplish them. It's like very nuanced. It meets people with their personality type and what they're specifically struggling with. Are they dysregulated on a channel? Do they need some system map to know what to do next? Like, it's very different for each person. We use the system we go through, but each person's audit for their life is different. And I found that most of our work with intuition is helping them heal the sensing side of it. The part, because there's both parts that come. If you have a preference for intuition, you're usually uncertain and neglecting the more sensory part of you.
Yeah.
And so our work with them has been to help them heal and move into the sensing part. Weirdly enough, to unlock the intuition, it wasn't just address the intuition directly. It was actually, I got to go heal some sensing stuff.
Yeah.
And the reverse is true too.
Yeah.
Many of the sensors we've worked with, the challenge is they have these strategies to cover over the insecurity or maybe uncertainty of their intuition, And so actually to unlock the sensory and amp that up, it's actually the work on healing your intuition. So we found they always come as a polarity opposite. If you have sensing as a lead, you're going to have intuition right behind it, and vice versa. So the two energies running inside somebody, it's often counterintuitively the other energy that has to be healed or worked with to unlock the power of the primary.
Yeah.
It's been my experience in our work.
Yeah, to integrate it in for sure.
And so I think that's why it's so powerful now to revisit this, is because I think we're tuning more into the map of how the intuition's coming up, not just the fact that it's binary, you're either intuitive or you're not. Mm-hmm. It's less about that label anymore. We've gone so far in the maps, it's almost hard to talk about personality type at just the label level. It breaks down pretty quick for me.
Yeah, I would agree that the label part is, it's not as rich, there's not as much insight, but I will say this. One thing that I don't think I have acknowledged in a long time, and I think I didn't want to acknowledge it for a while because I didn't want to be considered, like lumped in with that whole, thinking intuitives are better or something. But I think that it should be stated on a semi-regular basis that discovering that a person has intuitive preferences is almost always a massive game changer for them.
It's like somebody discovering they're introvert. Like, wow, no wonder I need so much recovery alone time.
Yes.
Well, no wonder it's hard for me to go out all the time with my partner, husband, friend, whatever. Yep. No wonder.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm wired differently than most people or like other people.
In the same way that people act like finding out they're an introvert is like a game-changing reframe for them for the rest of their life, discovering you're an intuitive is as powerful, if not more powerful.
Yeah.
And in part because there's actually not that few of introverts in the world. It's kind of a 50-50 split. 50% of the population is extroverted, 50% is introverted. Now, extroverts dominate the world in the sense that even though they're only 50% the population,
we make the rules.
Yeah, well, we're the ones
introverts.
Well, we're the ones that are kind of world building, right?
Yeah.
Like we're like setting the tone and making things happen, and there's
singing in public spaces.
Yeah, and like getting people together for parties and inviting people and like going like, why didn't you come to my party? And like it's like extroverts are busy people and they tend to try to rope everybody else into whatever they're doing. So there is something to be said for discovering you're an introvert and being like, oh, you mean I get like peopled out more than other people do? That's a pretty big thing.
It's not a flaw. It's how I'm wired.
That's right. And I don't need to feel bad about it. Now, I have also seen introverts do that introvert superiority thing.
Ooh.
When they discover that they're an introvert, they'll do the same thing as intuitives and they'll be like, what? You mean I'm a beautiful swan? There's value here? And it's like, yeah, of course there's value. Otherwise we wouldn't be wired that way. There's nothing intrinsically superior about an introvert in the same way that there's nothing intrinsically superior about an intuitive.
Sure.
But there are things that come along with it that once you discover that this is how you're wired, you now stop downplaying or pushing aside or beating yourself up for these characteristics. And now you have some cool things that are available to you when you stop beating yourself up for being wired the way that you are. So discovering a person is an introvert is kind of a big deal for a lot of introverts. And then they get access to all the cool introverted stuff, which is greater access to processing. All right, discovering that as opposed to being wired for interfacing, they're wired for processing, like processing internal material. Why is that a good thing? Well, because that's where a lot of stuff is figured out. A lot of things about the human condition, a lot of things about, calling wisdom from the past, a lot of things about projecting, running simulations and projecting things into the future. A lot of theories are discovered there. A lot of understanding about the human condition is discovered in an introverted space. So there's a lot of like rich territory that then gets brought to others as it's been noodled through, all this processing, and the world benefits from it. I would say probably, I don't know. I mean, I'm going to give a bullshit statistic. There's lies, damn lies, and statistics, and I'm going to give one of those. I would say probably 70% of book writers are introverts.
Ooh.
Maybe even 80% is my guess, right? I think
maybe podcasters are extroverts.
Yeah, I think most podcasters are extroverts, obviously. But I think introverts are the ones that have a tendency to process inside of themselves and then put it out on a piece of paper, right? And put it out on a page through the written word.
And words can be processed and manipulated and managed in-house and quietly to yourself.
Yeah.
I can see that.
That damn lie statistic is like, I'm just making it up, but it's like my guess. I wouldn't...
It kind of feels right.
I wouldn't bet the farm on it, but I'd probably put a couple chips on that one and
Sure.
watch the ball go around the roulette table, right? Or the wheel. I'd be like, I'm pretty sure I'm right on this one.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of value to being an introvert, and a lot of gifts, and also some things that need to be protected. And it's really important for an introvert to know that. Now, as a person who has extroverted preferences, I don't look at an introvert and be like, I don't have this like inferiority complex around being an extrovert. I don't feel like I have a less insight available to me because I'm an extrovert, or I have less capacity.
The introverts know that's true, but you don't know it's true.
Right. Yeah. I mean, maybe
They'd
being
be like,
an introvert
you
is
actually
this
are missing on a lot of introspection, Antonia.
100%.
They
Yeah.
would probably know that about, if you would slow down and tune in, you would have a richness to it, but you're out doing stuff, so you don't know it's missing.
Yeah.
Even if it is missing, you wouldn't know it.
Yeah. Well,
right? I mean,
to the extent that an introvert is doing it. Now,
sure.
personal development dictates that I also pluck the fruit of the introverted tree, right?
That's right.
Like, that's my job. My job is to not just be an extrovert, which I was very extroverted when I was younger. My job is to have more quiet, more go inward, process more. And there was a time period in my life where that was basically all I could do for basically a year or two. And that was a totally life altering experience for me. And so I understand the value of introversion, because I was kind of forced to visit that space for an extended period of time, and the rewards were tenfold. So, I don't necessarily want to be an introvert, but I understand the value of introversion, and I understand the value of somebody who clocks more time in that space than I do. Okay. So all of that said, let's move over to that concept of the intuitive versus sensory split, because I think there is something to be said for discovering you're an intuitive, and also recognizing, and I don't think the numbers are the same as they used to be. I actually suspect that we are gaining more intuitives as almost an evolutionary adaptation, is my guess.
We're going to need it maybe for the coming intuitive world.
Yes.
We're not building as many bridges. We're like sort of writing more code and like sort of imagining sort of newer things.
Yeah.
Like, we got to think about what a colony on Mars will be like.
Yes.
More than how do we rebuild a bridge in Manhattan.
Yep.
So it's shifting now.
Though we still need to build those bridges in Manhattan, but the
robots can do that.
Yeah, but the robots will do that.
Yeah, the robots, we got it.
Well, I think the reason why we're going to need more intuitives, and even if we don't birth them, so to speak, one of the reasons why we'll need to have more intuitive representation is because we're going to enter a massively disrupted space, and we'll experience a lot of what we're calling existential dysregulation.
A couple episodes ago, we talked about this.
Correct. Yeah. What does it mean to be human? What is the fate of humanity if all the jobs are taken? Like, what does it mean to be, what does it mean to live in this world? Like, there's going to be a lot of very dysregulating thoughts around the unknown. Because really, intuition, a preference for intuition is a preference for speculating on the unknown or thinking about the unknown. By definition, sensory preferences is a focus on experience. My experience from the past, somebody else's experience that I can borrow wisdom from.
My neuroscientist or my neurosurgeon's experience.
Right.
They're going to operate on my brain. I hope they have experience.
I'm going to want them to be experienced.
And know what they're doing.
That's right. And so it's a focus.
Like speculate. Like, I think this is the right way to cut your brain open. I'll intuitively guess.
When I push on this part, your leg goes up.
Ooh, I'm going to guess what happens when I do this. Boop. Whoa,
right.
Unexpected.
Yeah, you want more experience in pattern recognition in that moment, for sure. Or blind pattern recognition.
But it wasn't, it's like different because it's like learned experience. It's not necessarily like, it's expertise. Mm-hmm. I think that's what I'm pointing to, is like there's like the lab coat means that there's learned knowledge from experience that happened somewhere at some point.
Yeah. That
I learned from, and now I have it as borrowed experience that I carry with me.
Yeah.
And that's just as sensory as like engaging with something directly.
Right. Like, unless they came in and pretended to be a doctor and stole that lab coat, ostensibly they got that lab coat when they got hired, and ostensibly when they got hired, they were well vetted, and
That's
somebody
right.
made sure that they had like gone through the sufficient amount of education and had the necessary experience. And so being like having a preference for sensing means that you feel the most confident and certain anytime you're in the realm of experiences, whether they're your experiences, somebody else's experiences, expertise. Like, experience is the name of the game for sensing. And so a world needs to be built on experience. It makes sense that we would have traditionally had a disproportionately high amount of people who were focused in on experience, the experience of the moment and the experiences we've had in the past that we can build upon. That makes total sense. And we've always needed just this little representation, not a huge like chaos generating representation, but enough of a representation of people who cannot shake this idea of being tuned into the unknown. Right? Like what can we know that doesn't require direct experience?
Yeah.
Right? And what are the kinds of things that are considered the unknown that can't be directly experienced? And these would be things like the future that we don't get to experience until we get there, and it's no longer the future. So the future, by definition, is always in the realm of the unknown. And the abstractions of our minds, like the symbols and meanings and world building, right, in fantasy or, you know, in alternative concepts or realities.
Or the known that has a gap in it, right? Like Middle Ages, they knew that China and the East Asian islands existed with trade, like spices. They just didn't know that the Americas were between them and that. So they sail west out of Europe and they run into the Americas thinking they ran into Asia. So they had a piece of information,
right? But
they were exploring an unknown route there, attempting to get to another known piece of information. Mm-hmm. And here, wow, a whole new discovery happened.
Yep.
Right? The pattern of, oh, maybe we can go this way around the Earth instead of that way. Mm-hmm. Maybe the Earth is round, not flat. Whoa, look at what we found in the process of this. So
exactly.
The reason intuition is valuable is because it creates new discoveries in its speculation and movement toward the unknown.
Correct.
It makes that thing that's unknown known.
Correct.
That's what it's desired to do. It's trying to bring it into the known world.
Exactly. In fact, that's what it's most one of the most rewarding things is to take material that has been in the unknown and then transfer it to the known, and now it's available to everybody.
Yeah.
And so but there's like this I remember reading this quote one time that said that dreamers are homesick for places they've never been. Mm. And I thought that was a very interesting idea of it poetically communicates the idea of wanting to, it's almost like you're homesick for something you've never been to.
Yeah.
It's this need and drive to head towards the unknown. The challenge, of course, is that we are expected to be more tuned into an experience, because what do we get hired based off of? Our experience. What are we vetted when we talk about a subject? Our experience with the subject. What are we expected to know by the time we become an adult? We are expected to have made all of the mistakes of teenagers, so we have the experience to become wise, right, into our adulthood. Like there's markers of development that we're expected to hit because of the experience that we're expected to have. So and all of that makes sense, right? It all makes sense that experience would be a higher order.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Okay. But what if you are wired so that experience doesn't give you a sense of certainty, it gives you a sense of uncertainty? Like as in, just because I have experience with this doesn't mean that I feel like I'm confident to be able to do this.
Yeah, and that would be maybe somebody that's not wired that way. It'd be hard to understand.
Right. And they would just do things like bring to their family all the subjects that they've been thinking about, which are all attuned to unknown things. And if nobody else in their family is similarly wired, then what they're going to be doing is triggering a bunch of uncertainty in everybody in their family. And so they're going to take it as rejection, or they're going to take it as, like we don't want this, when really what they're doing is they're unconsciously triggering in the other person, and neither person is aware of it, a feeling of uncertainty. They go, hey, there's this whole realm that I'm tuned to that makes me feel really certain and confident. Yeah. And in fact, it makes me feel like me at my best. I'd love to bring it to everybody else. And everybody else, it's triggering a sense of like, I'm not sure what to do about that. I don't know how to respond to that. I'm deeply uncertain. And so what an intuitive is experiencing growing up, if they've had a family that has not been wired the way that they have, then they get a lot of feedback that it's like, what you're doing is unacceptable. And what they're doing isn't talking about an intuitive topic. What they're doing is triggering uncertainty. And it's the triggering of uncertainty that's the unacceptable act. But how are they supposed to know that?
This would make sense. So there's somebody, and I would love to hear from you if you have this experience, if you're listening or watching right now. Have you ever found yourself, you're an intuitive, and you're talking about something intuitive around people that have sensory preferences, and they get angry about it? They get triggered. From your perspective, it'd be unnecessarily triggered. Like, I just brought up a topic. Why is this person frustrated or upset all of a sudden? Like, they're almost angry that you're bringing a topic up. Have you ever had that experience? I'd love to hear from you. Or have you ever been on the side of being triggered when maybe in a more abstract, maybe you have more sensory preferences and a more abstract conversation was brought up, and you found yourself feeling emotions and feeling like really troubled by this? You almost found yourself getting angry. You don't even understand why. You're just feeling a little bit, I got to somehow protect against this. This feels threatening. It probably is something, Antonia, that is triggering an uncertainty in somebody. Mm-hmm. That's probably whether the anger isn't actually angry at the person or the situation. It's, I'm angry that I feel so uncertain, and anger feels better than the uncertainty I'm feeling. So I'm going to overload it with maybe frustration or anger. Mm-hmm. That makes you feel more in control.
Yeah.
I've seen this so much where people get frustrated or angry with intuitive topics unnecessarily. And sometimes they're intuitives too. I mean, it's not always just sensors, but usually intuitives don't have this challenge. And I'm always like, whoa, I'm surprised when the person has such a visceral reaction.
Yeah.
You had this one time, you were telling me, like, over their friends, you were hanging out with some friends once, and you guys were talking about some intuitive, and this one girl that you were hanging out with was like really angry with you guys. You were even talking about intuition stuff around her. And she like started to make a problem for the group, and like, it was like a challenge for her. She was probably feeling deeply uncertain.
It was a friendship group, and she had ESFJ preferences, and she's married to an ENTP.
Yeah.
And most of the time that we hung out, I hung out with that friend group, it was a lot more balanced between sensors and intuitives. But this one time, she just happened to be totally outgunned. And it was like, and we were all in our 20s. I mean, we were young people, but it just happened to be that every person in the room besides her was an intuitive. And of course, we all got like really excited and
boing, boing, boing,
boing, boing, boing, boing, like, right? And we're all like throwing stuff around. And at a certain point, she just like, she got overwhelmed, and then she got angry and upset and stormed out.
Yeah.
And her husband.
Not about the topic though.
No.
It wasn't about a specific topic. It was just the fact it was more intuitive conversation.
Yeah. Well, and we all knew what type. I mean, we all knew type. And her husband went out to go find her, and then he came back and he's like, I think we're gonna go home, and it's kind of late night anyway. And we were like, yeah, no problem. And then later on, both of them said to this group of friends, she apologized, and she said, I realized I'd never been outnumbered by intuitives before. She's like, and I didn't. She's like, I was like really. It was like a moment when she said that she had a lot of sympathy for her husband.
Well, and being an ESFJ, it's an eternal child part of her that's her intuitive part. Mm-hmm. And it's always trying to probably, I mean, all of us have the part of ourselves in our, if you're listening or watching, you don't know this from the label you have, the 4 letters, you have an entire map of your cognition, and it shows you the parts of yourself that you're trying to like overprove. And that 10-year-old or tertiary part of all of us, we try to prove ourselves there a lot.
Yeah.
We really want to be seen as competent and capable. And I find that most people, when they feel humiliated, it's this part of themselves they feel humiliated.
Yeah.
Like I was talking to my friend who has ENFJ preferences a few months ago, and he was talking about like tripping or falling and how embarrassing and humiliated he felt. And then just on a call recently, another ENFJ reported that they tripped and fell and felt humiliated. And I'm like, yeah. So it's like, it doesn't matter the channel. That's a sensory channel that happens on. So it doesn't matter what the flavor of that function at that position is. Often I think we feel very humiliated there, and it causes all sorts of weird behaviors. Mm-hmm. I bet you she was feeling almost outgunned, like she couldn't keep up. She's hoping to get approval here, and yet there's no way you're getting approval in this group based on how sophisticated it is. So it's like, oh man, I got to take account of where I really stand on this.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not as good as I wish I was here. And so again, we all have that version of it, but I think that's probably what's happening for her.
Right.
In that specific situation.
Well, and it happened even though she was aware of type, even though she could like see, I mean, it took her a minute to probably kind of put everything together, but it wasn't even like a moment of like it's not like she didn't have a model to pull on or to some sort of reference to what was going on. She knew that she was in a room full of intuitives. She could see the dynamic happening, but it was still really unsettling.
Yeah.
So even when we're armed with information, the phenomena still happens to us.
Absolutely.
We get thrown into a place of uncertainty, and as particularly the parts of ourselves. I mean, if it's an uncertain place where we want approval, we might get upset because we're not getting approval for our contributions, to your point. Or it might be a place of deep uncertainty where just the topics themselves are triggering because they're pulling us into, into a pit, an area of a bunch of like stuff that we don't even know how to contend with. Now, the older we get, the less likely this is to happen. But I think it's important to remember that when the tables are turned and an intuitive is outnumbered by sensors, the inability to contribute, or the marginalization, or the sometimes even the heat or the frustration, or like, what are you doing? Like, you and I've had that experience when we're around primarily sensors, and you'll ask a question, which is a very intuitive question, and sometimes they bite and they're like really into it and it's fun and playful, and other times you'll get this look like you're doing something wrong, or like, why would you even mention that? That's like ridiculous. That's crazy. Why would you even talk about that? Why is that a thing?
Yeah.
And it's so difficult to not separate out this rejection of self, because as I've mentioned many times, whatever your dominant or driver function is, whatever your your primary cognitive function is, you can't be insulted in it. Nobody can insult you there. If they said, like, just take a minute, you the listener, just take a minute to think about your dominant function and just imagine somebody saying all sorts of like saying things about how terrible you are with that. You just can't be insulted. You're just going to shrug. You're just going to be like, that's whatever you're talking about. But you can be rejected in it. A person can say, you might be good at it, but it's valueless, or there's no purpose to it, or we don't like that here. And that cuts to the bone. An insult, you won't swallow the knife. You won't even care. But a rejection, particularly amongst people that you love, that will cut to the bone.
So an insult's about capacity, rejection's about identity?
Mm-hmm, about the person themselves.
So you feel rejected as a person, whereas your insult's like, you're bad at this capacity-wise. I'm like, no, I'm not. I know I'm not. Like,
yeah.
Okay, whatever. But if you reject it, it's like, well, you don't like it at all. You don't like me at all.
Right. So if you lead with intuition, that rejection of the intuition is going to feel very personal. You're going to be rejected as a person, not your intuition. And then if it's a co-pilot or auxiliary function, that comes along with parental energy. And so then it's going to feel like this thing that you have to offer that can help other people so much. The rejection is going to be, it could potentially be feedback that one of your greatest assets, one of the greatest things you have to offer and contribute to others, is something that nobody really wants, right? It's not useful. So regardless of where the intuition falls, if you have a preference for it, whether it's your first or second function or driver co-pilot in the car model, it doesn't matter. The rejection hits pretty close to home, right?
Yeah. It's
either I'm rejected as a person or one of my greatest offerings is rejected. And either way, it's like, it's really, if you experience that once or twice, that's enough to engender sympathy for the experience. But if you've, say, grown up in a context where that's happened over and over again, it makes sense that a lot of intuitives then discover they're intuitive and then have this like inferiority complex get reversed, and now they're in a superiority complex. They're like, you mean I was better the whole time? And it's like, no, you weren't better. You were just tuned into something that also has value. And so, it's hard to not have the pendulum swing the other direction.
Of course.
That said, there is a lot of value to having intuitive preferences, in the same way that there's a bunch of stuff that introverts can tune into that extroverts can't. And it's a feature, not a bug. It's the same thing with intuition. There's a lot of cool things that come along with being an intuitive. And one of the first things to get ourselves in a place where we can rest into ourselves is to discover all of those really cool things. Not to create an overweening, compensating ego, but to be able to look around our lives and go, am I using this as well as I can? Am I attuned to this energy? Am I seeing it? Is there money that I'm leaving on the table with my intuition?
I think the industrialized life we live now also is part of this, in that we don't give ourselves permission to be weird in an intuitive way as much as we probably could. And I don't mean just intuitive people. I mean people that have censoring preferences too. Like allowing intuition to live in the realm it needs to live in the way it needs to live for the person's comfort level. Most of us are not living as an intuitive life as we could be for how we're wired, even sensors. Like, we just aren't. But our ancestors did. They were more tuned into things. Like, we were at the Karnak Temple in Egypt, and some of the Egyptian, ancient artifacts and sites, you can just feel a more reverence and more attunement to the intuitive part of life. Symbology, meaning making, statues, ritual, the way they lay out buildings and architecture, like they're tuned into things that have bigger meaning, right?
The beginning of the written word through hieroglyphs.
Yeah.
That's very intuitive.
Right. And it's interesting. And there's a lot of, what's interesting too, is there's a lot of sensory deference too. Like, you've got beautiful, in the Valley of the Kings, when you go to the tombs, there's these paintings from 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years ago. You've got the mummification of actual mummies. You can see like dead bodies from 6,000 years ago or whatever in these like glass cases. So they were really focused on like building real structures and preserving the sensory. And so it was like this very interesting balance between this intuitive life and this sensory life and what they thought about the afterlife. So you look at ancient cultures and you're like, wow. And our culture is so industrialized. I think that's where it got turned off. It's kind of the industrial, just like steel beam, like cut across it. And I don't think intuition's like back to basics, like back to farming, but it's back to something that's more energetically in alignment with the natural order of things than it is a steel building. Although a steel building is wonderful and it helps support us in other ways.
Yeah.
Electricity and these kinds of things. These are not necessarily, I think there's almost like, our intuition gets obfuscated by them and cordoned off, and like permissions get removed at least from internally.
Yeah.
And so I always think that the work for intuitives to awaken it is to allow yourself to go ahead and tune back into all those intuitive things. The symbology, have a personal symbol for your life, or symbol meanings, or you wear certain things and you express yourself in a certain way, tuning into those. And then sensors can certainly do it too. That's just like one step, finding people you can talk to around it. Like, our intuitive awakening walks through a lot of these things. And I think we need to amp up even more of that.
Yeah.
I think the 2.0 version, the reboot, is to get more into the analog and not such a sterile, defined version of intuition.
Correct.
Which is, I think, where clearly that didn't come from Jung. That was more of a Myers-Briggs application of it. And it got very westernized and very like 20th centuryized.
Yeah.
But Jung, I think, was tied into more of this genuine, from the earth, from like wellspring of life intuition. I mean, he's got weird stuff. He's like a mystic, basically. Yeah, that's closer to intuition.
He didn't think he was a mystic, but I think he was a mystic.
I mean, I think he was too. But like, that's closer to what I think where real intuition, or what, not real, but you know what I mean? Like, fully expressed intuition, let's say it that way.
Right.
Allowed to come out in its full expression. It's going to be more, or it's going to be undefined. It's going to be more freeform. It's going to be more wild, like vines growing in the forest. It's not going to be this curated, tightly controlled, okay, you can be intuitive in this very specific application.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, well, and I think that's one of the reasons why particularly intuitives that are raised in a context that did not encourage them to bring their intuition out end up very much compartmentalizing it.
Or they put it onto very acceptable channels, like Dungeons and Dragons, or role-playing games, or like you can apply it in a very specific, curated, kind of like athleticism or extroverted sensation.
Right. Like
in athletics, you can do it, and you can do it in a couple other arenas, maybe boxing or UFC, but don't let your kids climb trees. That's too dangerous.
Yeah.
Like,
don't let them climb retaining walls. Like they could fall.
Don't let them just climb those boulders over there. Don't let them walk to school. That could be dangerous. Like maybe somebody would snatch them and they couldn't protect themselves. Like all these things.
Don't let them run around and scream, even though that's what kids need to do in order to get their energy out. Right.
Whatever. So
or they're being too loud.
It's kind of like that on the intuitive side. It's almost like it's okay in these very specific applications that society can control and the Western mind can cordon off, but outside that, don't do it.
You can go cosplay at Comic-Con, but other than that, or whatever. And so, that's what we tend to do, is we tend to have this like over curated, compartmentalized version of it. And then if we do things that are like, that the world considers woo-woo or crazy, then we get stuck with like being told that we have to rationalize it in a way that other people can understand. Otherwise we're dumb, like if you have, if you've got like rocks around, or like, like minerals, and you have an association or relationship to minerals or these rocks or whatever, like you will get so vilified by anybody who's got a hyper rational way of looking at life.
Yeah.
That it almost feels like, well, I'm going to keep my rocks, but I'm just going to keep them in my room so nobody can that's the most repressed version of it. All the way up to, and I'm not a person who's into rocks. But I'm into tarot, right? Yeah. And there's this idea of you have to rationalize your relationship to tarot or something, or to things like that. I mean, at this point, I'm just yeah, no, I don't. But it's hard not to if that's what you've been, sort of fed. And then particularly if you're raised in a context, like for me, I was fortunate enough to have two other intuitives in my family. My mom has INFJ preferences, and my older brother has ENTJ preferences. But my dad had ESTP preferences, and my sister had ESFJ preferences. So we had 3 intuitives and 2 sensors, which meant that the sensors were a little outnumbered. But I would say it was still a very balanced, context. I don't think that it was a particularly intuitive or a particularly sensory household. So we got both of them. But my experience was that we were massively plugged into a religion that was not intuitive friendly.
Yeah.
And so my mom would hide her intuition and then share it with my brother and I. But she kind of felt like she had to hide it. She had a library of books everybody saw, and then she had a library of books that were just hers. Right. And they included things like fantasy novels. And that's where I found Please Understand Me, the first Myers-Briggs book I ever read, and the Birth Order book. And it was systems and models and intuitions and symbols and all of that.
Also Tolkien too, right?
Yeah. Fantasy. Yeah. Tolkien was there.
So that's also in this little collection she's got on the side.
Yeah. And science fiction and stuff. And it was why can't this just be out there? And it's well, it might offend somebody in our religion. It's why would Tolkien offend anybody? But it's okay, yeah, no, Tolkien totally offends people in certain religions. So it's anything that was intuitive. And so I learned through her, modeling her, I learned how to hide my intuition and only funnel it and use it in behalf of people within the religion.
Yeah. To
help them understand concepts that they didn't get, even though I was a teenager, right? And I was using my intuition that way, and it felt like it was enough, but it wasn't nearly enough. And so part of surviving, quote unquote, and I don't think it's a sensory world. I don't think intuitives have to survive a sensory world. I understand why we feel like we have to. I understand why that's how we would say it to ourselves, but I don't actually think that's totally accurate.
Well, I want to push back on that a little bit just for a second. I want to hear your full thought. Maybe I should wait till you complete your thought first.
No, go ahead and push back.
I was just going to say, somebody that enters the world, let's say it is roughly about 75% sensor, and it's set up that way. Let's say I'm a left-handed person and I enter the world and only about 25% of people are like me. Most people are going to have right-handed mice, and everything's going to be set up for a right-handed person. Mm-hmm. So it's going to feel like the world is immediately putting me into uncertainty.
Yeah.
And deficiency because it's set up to use my right hand, not my left hand. So I could see somebody thinking it makes a lot of sense that you feel like you have to survive a sensor world because the structure or the system of the world is set up for quote unquote metaphorically right-handed people or sensorily minded people.
Yep.
And not left-handed people or intuitive minded people. Again, I'm not conflating those two things. I'm using that as an example, a metaphor. And so it feels like it's not against me, but it feels like it's for somebody else. It's not set up for me.
Yes.
So I feel like I have to navigate a space that's not designed for me and how I'm wired.
Yeah.
That's why somebody would say that.
And if it was 30 years ago, I'd be absolutely, 100%. But I think that we are now not in a time period that we live in a sensory world. I think we're moving into an intuitive world. And I think the majority of the population is struggling to keep up with the changes and the disruptions. We're moving into a world of abstractions. Most of our, ask anybody off the street how money works.
Yeah.
Even ask 10 people, ask 20 people how money works. And I guarantee you most of them would struggle to talk about how money works. How does money actually have value? And the reason why is because it is now an abstraction. I had somebody recently, we were talking about Bitcoin, and had somebody say well, it's not totally secure because what if the grid goes down? Well, my first statement was, and I mean that's actually, I would say probably I've had a dozen people say that to me actually, now that I think about it. It wasn't just most recently. I've had a dozen people say, but what if the grid goes down? And the first thing that my brain says or comes up with is well, if the grid goes down, we're in bigger trouble than our currency. Like we go full Mad Max if the grid goes down. But number two, fiat money is on the grid.
Yeah.
Like the overwhelming majority of money that we have in our country is not printed on dollar bills. It's digitally printed, quote unquote, digitally printed.
Ones and zeros on a screen.
Yeah, they just like literally invent it on a screen. And so we have faith in the dollar because it keeps working and because we all say that it works. And so it is a faith-based system for our currency. It's not backed by anything other than basically debt.
The United States military, quite frankly.
Well, the military. Yeah, exactly.
That's what it's backed by.
It's backed by the military.
It's like a giant insurance company with an army,
right?
Basically.
But it's like, what is backing the dollar? Well, what's backing the dollar is every time we get a dollar bill from the Fed, it comes with an interest rate.
And debt, yeah.
And debt. And so we owe the Fed...
The Federal Reserve.
The Federal Reserve.
Not the federal government.
Not the federal government, right?
The
Federal
Central
Reserve.
Bank of the United States.
Correct.
Yes.
We owe them that dollar back with interest.
Yeah, government does, yeah.
Yeah, and then we pass it along. And basically the only way that dollar is real is because the contract that says that we'll give it back with interest. So it's the interest that's actually the beholden part of the contract. And so that means basically our entire currency, our fiat currency is based on debt, right? Okay, so who knows that? Right? Who knows any of that? Very few people. Why? Because it is a complete and total abstraction of our money. Our money, which is like central to everything we're doing. All value exchange, all like currency that allows us to put a roof over our heads and clothes on our body and food in our bellies. The whole thing is set up by a total abstraction of debt, contracts, and ones and zeros on computer screens with a couple bills, like, a couple green, what Robert Antonia calls them green biosurvival tickets, with a few of those roaming around too.
Yeah.
So the world is getting more and more and more abstract. In order to understand how our reality works, we have to be able to get into these like mental models of reality more and more and more.
Yeah.
And so even though it feels like a sensory world, I think right now we're entering a very intuitive world of abstraction and trying to understand reality through these mental models and not through personal experience.
And it's being weaponized and utilized this way. I remember watching recently in the last couple of years, Jon Stewart was interviewing a representative from the Pentagon. And he was saying to this person, he's like, the Pentagon has failed 8 audits in a row, or 8 years of audit, or 10 years of audit, something like this. So you guys you tried to audit yourselves, and you keep failing your own audits. You can't account for where the money's spent. Mm-hmm. So he's trying to go, okay, there's a sensory, like measuring stick thing. Like we can point to real numbers and digits and reports to say, here's where the money went.
Right.
And it's missing. Like, where is the sensory of where the money's going? And the woman he was talking to goes, well, that's a really interesting story. Tell me more about that story you have about that. And so he's trying to point to the audit itself, and she like makes it introverted intuition, like a perspective he has.
That's
like
a narrative.
Tell me that story. That's an interesting, basically narrative you have. Like, that's an interesting narrative. Tell me more about that.
Right.
Not rejecting what he's saying, but kind of like tacking it over into intuition. Mm-hmm. And now that's the channel we have to now talk about this on. When he's like, and he pushes back, he's like, no, but there's like a real audit. Like
there's like a thinking channel here of like numbers and problems and
and so it's very useful to people in power to make sure you keep it on these channels, and empowering the populace to understand their own intuition, even if it's not preferred for them, and others' intuition would be massively not in the people in power's best interest.
100%.
Because we could see the manipulation that's happening around us.
And chaos is a ladder.
People were tuned into this.
And so all of this abstraction and all of this, what we're calling existential dysregulation, is super useful to be able to tell people who have uncertainty here what the meaning of things are. They latch onto that. Then they go, oh, this is what the meaning is. And now they're taking actions and aligning with, certain factions or persuasions or paradigms or whatever without fully understanding it, but feeling a sense like they have figured it out. And so I think we're moving into if we haven't already fully gotten there, I think we're in an intuitive world. I just don't think anybody knows it yet. I don't think we've caught on. So in some ways, the reason why this 2.0 version of Intuitive Awakening would absolutely include sensors is because the next question is going to be not how do I as an intuitive survive a sensor world? It's going to be how do I as a sensor survive an intuitive world? Like that's going to be coming. And if it's not already here, and that's why I see so much dysregulation. It's like the world is requiring us to abstract and create models in our mind to understand how basic things work, because we are so many degrees of separation from like living in trees, basically, right? Where did we as an animal come from, right? We lived in forests and in trees and found mushrooms and bird eggs, and that was a good day, right? Or like hunted something, right? Took down a big mammoth with a whole bunch of other people, and and then we warmed ourselves with the skins of animals, and we moved across plains to seek better water. It's like that's where our ancestors all came from. That's all experience, sensory. That's all attunement. That's like having to really lock into your environment.
Well, and intuition served you there. We don't
have that.
Right? The hairs in the back of your neck would stand up when there was some danger outside the cave you're in. So you had this like short range kind of intuitive that helps you stay alive. Now we're taking intuition, applying it toward things like, let's go build a colony on Mars. Well, what if we could do that? Or whatever, fill in the blank of this big abstraction. We've almost turned into like this recreational, like what's possible? Question mark, question mark, question mark. I guarantee you people in the cave time period, whether they're intuitive or sense or wired, aren't thinking, how do we get to the moon? They're thinking, how do I survive the night from that big lion or tiger that might come into my cave and take my kids? So I got to build a fire and protect that. And I've got to use my intuition to protect me. Now we're using intuition proactively, not defensively.
Well, I mean, I think there was a bit of proactive in, that concept of like God of the gaps, like trying to create understanding and awareness and stories.
Sure. Tower of Babel, maybe building that towards something higher.
Or like explaining phenomena. Yeah. And then attuning to that and then using that as like a way of guiding to like the next
direction.
Yeah. Direction. Sure. And, innovation and that sort of thing. It's just, we're now at a place where technology is like, it's like hockey sticking on the exponential growth curve. And so we're able to take all of the inventions, innovations, learning and understandings of the previous generations and then now apply them to like real big BHAGs, right? Big, hairy, audacious goals.
Yeah.
So we're able to do that. I don't know if it was used recreationally. I think it was like used in pretty serious stuff, but I know what you mean. It's like the stakes were lower, or at least they were high stakes for them, but for us, it felt like lower stakes because we're now applying intuition to much more grand ambitions.
I don't apply my intuition to survival things very often.
Right, exactly.
Mostly it's proactive goals or something furthering into the future.
Yeah.
It's not like defensive or survival level.
Right.
I have used it there, like in a dark alley kind of moments where I've tuned into my environment and I'm like tuning into something that's extra sensory, but it's very rare when I'm there.
Yeah.
Very rare in my life. But I think our ancestors were almost always there in their intuition.
Yeah.
And we have the luxury now of having a lot of the sensory just handled to where our intuition as a people, doesn't matter how you're wired, is unlocked to be applied toward other things that it may not have evolved for.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Like our sexuality evolved for procreation, but now we use it for all sorts of things.
Right.
Right. Or the sex act and sexuality is used for expressions in all sorts of ways, politically, sensually, whatever.
Yeah.
Whereas its original mechanism is for the procreative act of furthering the species.
Right.
Humans have narratized it, and now we've got all sorts of stories around sex and the way we apply it. Well, I think the same thing for intuition. It was a function of survival, biological evolution that helped us survive.
Yeah. That
we're now escaping from, and it's almost like we're learning how to apply it in this proactive way that it never necessarily evolved for, as far as I'm concerned.
And yet is its inevitable conclusion,
Sure.
Or not conclusion, but it's like it gets here inevitably because it's a function of foresight and of innovation.
Yeah.
And so it's going to it's not going to stop, right? It's just like, okay, well, what else can we innovate? What else can we innovate? What else can we innovate? And the reason why right now it's kind of disconcerting is because we are speeding it up so fast.
Yes.
It's going so fast. Innovation is going so fast. It's crazy.
Well, and people require sensory proof for intuitive leaps. So I have an intuitive leap and it's like, well, I need to show that through studies. I can't just use my intuition to speculate and move. I have to have the proof case. And so that's something that in our past, maybe not ancestry past caveman times, but in a more recent past, let's say during the Enlightenment, like the age of discovery and invention, again, I talked about this in a couple episodes ago. It's almost like the perfect information capture and the make sure we get it all down on paper and we have it all understood fully, I think suppresses that intuitive trust that move towards something with your gut that I think a lot of our not far back ancestors, but just more immediate in the last 500 to 1,000 year ancestors had a lot more access to and permission for.
Yeah.
Right? The inventors of the time. And I don't see a lot, there's very few inventors now as there once were, maybe because of this.
We tend to, at this point, oh, well, actually, are you sure? Because we just developed AI as a species.
Sure.
So there's lots of invention,
but I would say there's less inventors.
That might be true. I'm not sure. I actually don't know that. It feels like we're massively iterating on all the inventions that have already happened. Like we're in an iteration period. That I think there's a lot of iterators.
I would agree to that. Yeah.
Maybe not. But I mean, there's a lot of things that have already been invented. So, that's a really interesting question.
But how many new subway systems in major cities have been invented in the last 100 years? Or are we still using the same subway that was invented in 1890?
Right.
There's not very much new invention. It's all code. Yes. Okay, go online to web apps. But our physical world, how much different do I live in my house? I mean, there's a couple things. Yeah. But my grandparents had electricity in the 1930s and 40s. I'm still living with electric lights. Now they're better electric lights. They don't burn as much resource. They light better. They don't burn out as much. Yeah. Maybe they burn less electricity. There's more of them. But we haven't really changed much of our lifestyle in the last 100 years.
Well, there's a conspiracy theory as to why.
Right. We don't need to go into that. But the point is, like, most development hasn't happened. Like, we're not inventing new things.
Yeah, we aren't. Well,
very specific. Like, there's rockets being invented to go to Mars or whatever, like that. Yeah. But I'm saying most things we're still living.
Yeah. I'm
still driving a combustible engine in my car.
Right.
Kind of like the Model T. It's not that far removed. Now there's just more comfortable and it's got air conditioning and other. So we've tweaked it. To your point, we've iterated and calibrated the crap out of everything.
And we're moving towards electric vehicles.
But there's no 0 to 1s. It's just all extra iteration on things. We haven't 0 to 1 much in the last 100, 150, 200
not
years.
A lot. Yeah.
And I think it's the industrial model is not lending itself to intuition and furthering. It's taking resource and slicing and dicing it down to smaller and smaller tokens. Yeah. And more precise. And I don't think it makes us happy, healthy, or furthering anything.
And the conspiracy theory is that it's entirely possible that out of complete and total terror that scientists were going to create even more available and efficient weapons of mass destruction. It might be that it was in the government's best interest to encourage the best minds to go chase, like to go on a rabbit or a wild goose chase.
Theoretical models rather than physical models.
Yeah, like things like string theory and multiverse and all of that. Like those were sort
safe
of
places.
Yeah, and that there was a ton of money that got thrown at what are effectively just entirely theoretical with very limited application.
So we don't build bigger nukes. That's basically what you're saying.
Yeah, so we don't like hydrogen bomb ourselves into obliteration.
That could be one slice of it. Yeah.
Right. So anyway, but I also agree with you. I think that we also have a tendency, because innovation is so fast and intuition is faster than a lot of sensing things.
Well, and if the industrial model is anything, it's a model of efficiency. Mm-hmm. And its product is more efficiency.
Yes.
And intuition is the opposite of efficient.
Correct.
So it doesn't fit in the industrial model very well because the industrial model is to produce a better product at a cheaper price at a faster timeline.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of the industrial model.
Right.
And that doesn't lend itself to intuition. In fact, intuition will hijack that. Even introverted thinking could possibly hijack that if it's not attuned to making that product better. Mm-hmm. Right. So there's a lot of things that threaten that system that aren't allowed, that are depermissionized, if you will.
Which is why 30 years ago I'd be like, yeah, totally. How do you as an intuitive survive a sensory world? But I think that the tide is turning on that.
A post-industrial model is emerging right now.
Correct. And lots of disruptive technologies are coming down the pike.
Yeah.
And we are going to go into a place of massive intuitive, or what we're calling existential dysregulation. We're already kind of there, but it's drowned out by the cognitive and emotional and somatic dysregulation that we're also experiencing. right? We're experiencing all the basics, but that one is like coming on the scene like crazy. And so if we were going to do an Intuitive Awakening 2.0, I think a major piece of it is going to be, how do I deal with existential dysregulation?
Yeah.
Like, how do I use my intuition to not just feel like uncertain and, afraid of the unknown? And people who favor intuition they don't conflate uncertain and unknown, right? Like, we always tend to conflate those two concepts, but intuition is actually the value of intuition is that it separates those two things out. The unknown is not uncertain. It's actually a place of certainty. It's a place of like desire and wanting to go further down that road. And so that's the major advantage to intuition, particularly in a world where like we are speeding towards the unknown at extraordinary accelerated rates.
Yeah.
We're going to need a lot of people who have a regulated existential, a self-regulation existentially to be able to help guide people to get to the other side of it and to go like, it's actually not, it's one of the things we very casually talk about the future and AI and crypto and all that stuff. And every once in a while they'll go off on this, like, I think the future is going to be really bad. Challenging. But
not
then
bad, challenging.
But the thing is that you click the mic, we end the podcast, we click the microphone off and you just go about your day. It's not like you're like sitting with this thing and like going, oh God, what's the future going to hold? It's like you speculate, you go, yeah, it might not be great, but it's not weighing on your soul.
Yeah.
Right. But for somebody else, it might. Just hearing what you have to say about like the potential possible negative futures, the challenging future. It does with our daughter. She has ESFP preferences. It like haunts her. I'm like, Joel, you have to stop talking about the future. Like, she's like, are we all going to die? And it's like, no, we're going to be fine. Like, your dad's just going off on his, intuitive rant. So
are we going to die? Someday we all will, but not right now, buddy.
Someday, but not today. So there's there's a need here.
Yeah.
To not just understand our intuition, but there's a need to like, number one, first, all rejection depersonalize.
Yes.
You're not being rejected. If you're an intuitive and you are around a lot of sensors.
You're entering a sensor world and you feel pushed back on. It's just your intuition, not you.
Correct. Your intuition is creating uncertainty in others. And uncertainty is this like feeling that, well, you can always tell somebody who's made peace with uncertainty because they got a real chill vibe. But if they don't have that like super chill vibe of making peace with uncertainty, you can tell because they're all spun up, right? And it's very easy to dysregulate a person who is trying to avoid uncertainty at all times. So just don't feel like it's personal to you. Understand that the thing that is being rejected is a feeling of uncertainty in the individual. Now, a person might go like, well, that's not my problem. Why do I have to deal with that? And the answer is because you do, because that's just how it works. And the advantage to understanding personality type is to be able to have awareness around all of this, not to be able to like actually change other human beings.
Yes.
So the awareness all by itself can be massively cathartic. And the second thing is to go, if you're an intuitive in a sensor world, that's your world. Your world is a sense, for some reason, where you're at, the people you're surrounded by, your career, and and the place you're in. That's the sensor world. But if you zoom out far enough, this is not a sensor world. We are entering an intuitive world. And in fact, in a lot of ways, we're, as people who lead with intuition, we're going to become kind of valuable and important to be able to not hand ourselves over to all of this existential dysregulation that's coming for us fast. And so I don't think it's a sensor world. I think we're entering an intuitive world for good and for bad, by the way. Like, that's not automatically a good thing.
I mean, when the population matches the world that's created, I think it's in alignment with how humans are wired. If we have a world, and this is kind of what AI does for everything, or the technology does for everything, is it skews the natural order of things. I don't think that we are all of a sudden going to have more intuitives on the planet. I just think we're going to have an intuitive world that we all have to rise to. We're still going to have probably 75% of, now maybe intuitives will breed with each other more or something. It's genetic. I don't know. But maybe we could...
Intuitives get to breeding.
Make some babies. Let's get this going. Well, and it's not a guarantee. Both of us are intuitive. We had an ESFP most likely.
We had an ESFP kid, so.
So I don't think it doesn't work that way necessarily, one-to-one. There's a distribution of population for a reason. Well,
my brain went to like an entire scenario of like breeding.
Yeah. Well, either way,
strategies.
we're not going to get eugenics around intuitives here. Just because we were able to eat anything we wanted and we had abundance of food didn't mean we don't have people that struggle with overeating or like sugar challenges just because it's so abundant. Like our bodies don't know that it's abundant. We think it's scarce, so we eat more than maybe we want to.
Correct.
And I do too. I just happen to have a metabolism that doesn't make it a problem for me, but I eat junky stuff for myself all the time if I'm not careful, right? It's just so easy to do it because it's so available.
Yep.
It's not like we just our humanity adapted that quickly to this. And this has been around for a long time.
Yeah.
Like abundance of food, at least for certain populations, has been around for a long time. And it didn't just skew the population numbers better for that. Like more people don't have higher metabolism because of it necessarily. And so I don't think it's going to just now we're going to have more intuitives on the planet. I think we're just going to go into a skewed reality. You know, just like weapons, just like a gun or a weapon skews the might makes right math. Like a big strong dude, there's no way I'm going to go up against him because I'm like a smaller guy. But I got a gun or a weapon, now that changes the economy of it. Now I have maybe I even have an upper hand on that guy, right? If he's unarmed. And so technology always skews what would normally be in its proper place. And I think this is going to happen here too.
Yeah, you might be right.
It's going to skew intuition out of maybe where it should have been the seasoning on top of the dish. Now, if it's the main dish, but most people aren't wired for it, that's a very interesting challenge that's going to come for us. It's like, it's going to create all sorts of secondary derivatives, like all these extra things that happen that we're not exactly, I don't know if we can even predict it. But,
I can't.
But I think the point that you're making is that as intuitives, maybe we can help be a part of the solution.
Yes.
I do think that's absolutely how I see it.
And so
we must be part of the solution.
Totally. And my recommendation is to not see yourself at the receiving end of
a sensory world.
We might be the ones in an advantaged place. And it's just cognitively. We still have to build all the same skills and tools.
Or at least aware of what's going on. Maybe if we don't have advantage.
Yeah, well, we have the advantage in that it doesn't put us in a place of uncertainty.
Yes.
That's the advantage. The advantage is that we aren't automatically thrown into uncertainty.
Yes.
And so that's a major advantage. Certainty and uncertainty, these are like really big motivators inside of ourselves.
So we're less likely to be dysregulated there or tune out of it or not look at it. We're willing to go look directly at the intuitive whatever.
Yeah.
And not probably get dysregulated because of it.
So some of the important questions at this point is like, how am I going to be a contributor if I want to be? If I feel like being an intuitive actually might give me an advantage in that way, and I am, like we're all wired for contribution. Intuitives are wired for unknown contribution. Sensors are wired for experiential contribution. Does that make sense? It's like they want to contribute in the areas in which they have experience. Sometimes that's family, sometimes that's career, but you know what I mean?
And we intuitives talk ourselves into jobs we're not qualified for.
Intuitives are for unknown contribution, which is why sometimes the desire for contribution gets really big. Or weird or whatever, right? And so it's like, we're all wired for contribution. Are you wired for contribution in an unknown way, like in a bigger unknown way? And so use your intuition to encourage you to take steps to go towards whatever that contribution could be, because we might honestly be really important and valuable at some point in the future. And I don't mean like intuitives as a collective, I mean as an individual. Like I might be really important at some point in the future. I don't know. I can make myself available if I'm seeing these things coming. So yeah, so I'd say one of the big changes in Intuitive Awakening 2.0 would be to go from a how do I survive a sensor world? I'd flip it on that. I'd go, how am I going to be somebody who can help sensors survive an intuitive world? And I think that's a totally different, I think that's a big enough reframe to change the dynamic. And this idea of like being bilingual, which is what we've talked about before. Intuitives can oftentimes speak sensor language. Yeah. Sensors can sometimes speak intuitive language. That can happen too. But it's usually because they were raised by an intuitive parent. Whereas intuitives have traditionally had to survive a quote unquote sensor world. And so they had to figure out how to speak both languages. What an incredible capacity. What an amazing way to create bridges. And anyway, so that's where my brain goes when I think about helping people who have an intuitive preference.
Well, we could probably see it two-pronged as well. You could see it, I think there are immediate challenges that people face being intuitive right now, having to navigate their sensor world. Like this person that wrote the comment might have a boss that has sensory preferences and they keep coming up with ideas.
Yeah, this person's in a sensor world.
And they just can't, like how do they deal with the sensor world? I mean, from a messaging standpoint, it's not as sexy to say, hey, come and learn how to be an intuitive leader as it is, hey, learn how to fix the problems in your sensory world.
Totally.
So how you frame it also will get the most amount of people tuned into it as well.
Yeah.
Like people are more tuned into solving problems than they are to optimizing possibilities.
Correct.
Except intuitives.
Yeah, it's true.
Sometimes they are more interested in that. But I think you have kind of a dual messaging maybe with this that I can see evolving. And we're doing a lot of unpacking kind of how we're thinking about these things on the podcast these days, which I think is really interesting because you listening or watching are getting to see, I mean, we have a lot of knowledge behind this, but you're seeing how we're playing with the application of it on the front end. And I think that this is where the challenge of personality type and the things we talked about has always been, is where do you apply it? And I'm so envious of other things that
other businesses.
Well, you started getting into tarot a little bit recently, Antonia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But you didn't go and learn, you didn't take a tarot course and learn tarot and then, okay, now I'm going to go do some tarot readings and see if I can apply it. You just started doing the readings and you were just for your fun, just fun. You were just doing fun readings just to kind of open up your own intuition and just understand more about maybe a situation you're in. Mm-hmm. And then in the midst of that, you're referencing material about a card maybe you pulled. And now you're learning the theory of the major arcana versus the minor, and you're explaining it to me, and you're learning the system. But you started with the application and the real world useful of it. Like you're operating it.
Yeah, I was starting with the readings.
And through the operation and the reading, now you're going back and backfilling.
Right.
I've always been frustrated because personality type seems to go the opposite way. People want to just stay in the realm of theory and understanding, and then maybe we'll get to application, and the applications are always simple applications that are always the same.
Yeah.
A better test to determine type. Oh, I know. Have you guys ever thought about building a dating app?
Dating app?
A dating app. Or now it's the next kick is like you go in, it kind of like knows all about you and then makes recommendations through the software for like decisions as you make, and it understands you more, and it's like this assistant you have. And I'm like, okay.
Or a coach.
That's very useful, but again, like you still have to learn how to self-regulate. You still have to kind of understand what's going on. And that's not necessarily going to jump out of the computer and come with you in life. And wouldn't it be better to teach yourself how to fish and understand the application of this in a more applied way? So I think that the reason we've been talking a lot about these kinds of things in the podcast, going meta for a second, is that we're trying to talk about the application first and then backfill into the theory rather than try to go the other direction.
Yes.
And I think this intuitive thing is really powerful.
Yep.
We have a lot of things to talk, and the other thing is it's bottlenecking at me. It's like the self-regulation stuff I think is also key.
Yeah.
For everybody. And then the intuitive. So we might have to do these in like sequence. Let's talk about, maybe we'll do like a self-regulation program or something first.
Yes.
And really get this out to help people understand how to regulate, and then talk about intuition on the backside of that.
I'd agree.
As like a second follow-up.
Yep.
Or maybe vice versa. I don't know. I think the regulation comes first.
No, I think regulation has to come first.
Because intuition can come out of the regulation.
Correct.
Right?
And lean on it.
And it might be the most primary one we need to do.
Well, and if you want to talk about application, learning how to self-regulate all four of these channels,
I think it's a killer app of personality type.
That's how we teach theory through application, is by starting with regulation.
Yeah. And I think somebody wouldn't even need to know like the Myers-Briggs system or cognitive functions.
Yep.
You could make it its own system probably in a way.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. Okay. We'll keep talking about this. We do want to hear from you though, listening or watching right now. What's coming up for you as we talk about this existential stuff? And we talked about it a couple episodes ago, but we're kind of furthering this conversation. Yeah. Are you seeing an intuitive world coming too? Do you sense this? Do you feel, or do you get an impression that we're headed toward more of an intuitive need? I don't think the population is going to shift. I think it's going to still be the general distribution.
You might be right.
Maybe it'll skew a little, maybe it's 60-40 more. I don't know. But I still think that based on how life went before with like abundance of food and stuff, the population is still distributed about how much it's distributed. Yeah. And I think it's going to stay about the same. So what does that mean? Assuming that I'm right there, I'm curious what you think too, listening or watching.
But intuition, even though it's born in, it might be more associated with epigenetics. So I don't know. I'm open to that idea too.
Okay.
I could be wrong.
We could explore that potentially.
I don't know how to explore it. How could we possibly measure it?
I think our job is to talk about the principles regardless of those the factors that are out of our control or out of our definition.
Doesn't matter.
I think that we understand what's coming. And I think that you listening probably have a sense of it too. And I think that we need to prepare for it on a lot of things. Regulation and intuition are the two big things that are coming up.
Yep.
But we want to hear from you. Make your voice known. You can come over to personalityhacker.com and leave a comment below this podcast there, or whatever channel you're on. And if you are over at personalityhacker.com, We recommend getting started, understanding more about the map of your personality. The best way to do this is with an owner's manual for your personality type. It doesn't just talk about the 4-letter label of your type, which can be useful. Like a label of New York City is useful to know where you are, and you can use the street labels to get around. But isn't a map of New York City much better to see it topographically and to see the things you can't see with just on the labels around you? That's why personality maps are so much more powerful. And this goes into the personality map of your cognitive wiring, how you learn information, how you make decisions, the best parts of you, the uncertain parts of you. It's a really great map. And it really goes in deep and helps you set up your life tailored for you so you can get over uncertainty and put things onto the terms that help you feel certain about moving through the world.
Yep.
So head over to personalityhacker.com, leave a comment, but also get one of those owner's manuals for your personality type. And we also have other programs and products there too.
We still have Intuitive Awakening, like I said, I would add to it.
Intuitive Awakening.
But
it's a great program.
It actually is a great program.
I forgot about pitching that one.
There's nothing, there's like legit nothing wrong with it. It's actually a really great program. It's just, I have
shorter hair.
It.
We're a lot younger.
We're so much younger, and Joel has much shorter hair.
I'm like a pink. I'm like a little kid in that one comparatively. Well, that was a long time ago.
It's been a minute.
But it's a good program.
Yeah.
I stand behind it. They're principled content. So the principles last no matter what. Yeah. It's just topically, it feels a little bit more from an older time period from us.
Yeah.
I guess we're an older time period now though, aren't we? We're older.
I know.
But go get a copy of that. I think Intuitive Awakening is, and then watch out for 2.0. If you have an Intuitive Awakening 1.0, you'll probably have some kind of a special bonus or something when we re-release and redo this, because we want to honor people that have taken action now, getting the resources you need now. And we've also recorded a ton of podcasts on intuition that you might want to go back and reference too.
Yeah.
All right. I feel like we did this one well.
Yeah.
My name is Joel Mark Witt.
I'm Antonia Dodge.
And we'll talk with you on the next Personality Hacker podcast.